Welcome to the Paperclip podcast, presented by VSDA. We have one clear goal: help you to become bigger. I'm your host, Brett Stone, and this is season 2, episode 12. Thanks everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening. Appreciate it. And today's guest is, it's a pleasure to introduce Samantha and Aaron Shedlock from Shedlock Training Systems. How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Good, thank you.
So the very first question we have, going back all those years when you're just a kid, what was your very first job and what do you think you learned from it?
My first job was working at Sam's Warehouse, which is like a huge $2 shop.
Okay.
So in retail, what did I learn from it? If you work hard, that you will be, able to grow. So I worked my way up to being a supervisor, and I think I was only 16, maybe 17. That's me. How about you?
Like, are we talking about first legit job or under the table? Like, what kind of job are we talking about? If we're talking about just taking cash from people, like,
Yeah, for sure.
Back doing like a pick-packing type job, factories with an engineering firm, so just picking and packing glassware, plasticware, and things like that. And it showed me that I did not want to work in a factory.
That's a good lesson to learn early on.
It's a really simple lesson that I not want to stand still.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of turning and doing this sort of stuff, but not much else.
So monotonous and boring. Grab, put in box, wrap in plastic, grab, put in box. No, that's not me.
So tell for people that are obviously watching or listening and don't know about Shedlock Training Systems, tell us a bit about what you do there.
We're basically in the business of changing people's lives through making them move better, feel better, and look better. We've got over 25 years of experience in our business. We were rated top 10 in Victoria last year for best personal trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Our main vision of Shedlock Training Systems is to educate, inspire, empower people to get results and then make them results look even better.
Awesome. And what are some of the things that people could expect to do when they come to see you?
So we probably get mistaken for being a group training center that we are not. So we focus heavily on fundamental strength. So a lot of strength training, so picking things up and putting it back down, or even just empowering females to be stronger. That there's an easier way to get results than smashing the pavement doing cardio. We adopt the less is more approach. So lift heavy, eat as much food as you want, still get the result you want. So that's our group training side. So heavily involved with strength training, a lot of nutrition support as well. We're just on the back end of doing a web-based e-learning center as well. So just so people can. So the goal of it is to make them the experts, make them their own experts. What else do we do? Body composition testing, so you can measure and test your body fat levels and cater all your programs towards that. Yeah, so those are probably like our core pillars that we probably focus on the most.
And do you find that people that participate in like the learning about wellness and how they can really understand more about like their body and what works, do you think that helps them achieve more as well?
Definitely. some of our best results are from people that have actually taken the time to learn along the way, ask the questions. They want to learn how to do things, are the ones that get the long-term results.
Yeah, the concept is not to deliver a one-size-fits-all approach or a cookie-cutter program that, designed for somebody and then somebody else can get the same thing. It's, even though our group training is universal, our approach to the individual is personalised. So the concept is to, in essence, make us redundant, because we will give you all the tools and all the skills necessary to take control of your own journey, that you'll be able to design and implement your own plans, your own nutrition programs, how to track and manage everything you need to get the results you want, and then also maintain that result and then make it look better.
Awesome. And how did the two of you learn the skills required to become experts in your chosen field?
Well, something that I've always been interested in is sports growing up. I think I have been a personal trainer for about 7 years or so. I've just done the basic certs. I don't believe that you learn much from them. The best way I've done is just mentoring from the best, and just upskilling my education all the time, because our industry is constantly changing.
And I come from a very athletic family. Genetically, they're very gifted at everything they did, but we're not exactly the most adherent people when it comes to being good at something but then following it through. So it was this, when I originally was at high school, my goal was to get into medical science, but just missed out, which annoyed the shit out of me. So I went into do aeronautical engineering instead, and didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't that much of a challenge for me, so I ended up going to sports science, and with the decision to backdoor it into medical science. Really ended up enjoying sports science, so I followed on with that, and it sort of went hand in hand with my parents are coaches by nature, so it sort of was something I fell into by default, and never really left.
And I know a couple of people that have gone and joined your program, and they're training there and participating, and I've witnessed a presentation from the two of you, and one of the things that keeps coming through, Aaron, is your really, I'm just going to say it, no bullshit approach to training and delivering information. Do you think that, as personally, I'm a big fan of it. It's often how I work with clients, and when I'm running workshops to try and teach people how to do things themselves, that's certainly the approach that I take as well. Do you think that approach is like really helpful? Do you think that helps people to achieve more?
Yeah, look, I don't. Look, it's not it doesn't suit everyone. My personality is very authoritative, so I'm very straight to the point, and if you want something, to work for it. But I guess that's the reason why we have a mix of, in our team, we have a mix of personalities, just to benefit the people who are a little bit softer at heart. The one thing I say to people when they first join up is that if you want to personally work with me, you need to have a strong heart, because if you don't, I'll make you cry. Look, like I said, our approach is not for everyone. It is a lot different, especially in this industry. It's a hell of a lot different, because everybody expects high intensity and full training type training. But I mean, our concept is proven to work. We were voted one of the best in all of Victoria, and my no bullshit approach isn't so much about my attitude. It's more that there is an easier way to do things than having to slug away and do countless amounts of reps and eat hardly any food to get the body you desire. There's a lot easier way to do it. And I guess that's what my concept of a no bullshit approach is that follow me and you'll get where you want to be.
Absolutely, and that's certainly the feedback that I've had from people that are participating in the program as well, is that they know that everyone there has their best interests at heart in whatever it is they're talking to them about. It's about trying to help them achieve that ultimate goal that they came to you with in the beginning.
Yeah, correct. At the end of the day, the client is always at the top of our list, and their result is always at the top of our list. Then there's a lot of backward steps that we probably have to take to make sure that we're moving forward. But at the end of the day, the result is always at the top of our list of what's most important.
And what are some of the differences that you found between kind of running your own show versus working with somebody else?
Yeah, we've done that a lot. Worked for other people, or worked even under other facilities. It doesn't give you the opportunity to grow. You're very restricted. I guess it would depend where you are, but our experience has been very restrictive of what we can and can't do. It limited us to what we can and can't do, especially with clients as well. So yeah, that was one of the biggest reasons we opened up our own facility, was to have that ability to do whatever we want, basically, but for our clients as well, it was in their best interest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for myself personally, like I've worked for myself for quite a while, like well over a decade, and I've always worked in facilities where the owner was an investor, and there wasn't a lot of emotion or trust or anything like that behind what was going on inside of it. It was just as long as there was money churning. So I didn't work well with that. And I don't work well with authority in general, but knowing that there wasn't they
weren't invested.
Yeah, they weren't invested in the results. They were just invested in their own personal gain. That didn't sit well with myself. So that was probably one of my biggest drivers to minimize interaction in that way.
I think it's great for anyone thinking about joining your program or a program like yours. It's great to hear that both of you are putting the goals or the results for your clients ahead of financial results or financial gains for the business. And I think that's there's certainly a consistent theme through most of the guests that I've had on the podcast, where they really typically they're averse to being led. They would rather run their own race, because typically they feel like they've got bigger or better ideas than what they've ever been able to implement working for somebody else. And at the same time, there's almost always an underlying factor of like caring for people or wanting to solve a problem for people. And that's evident in everything that the two of you are talking about as well.
Yeah, I think as well, like having worked for people as well, like for myself, I was always worried about job security and all that kind of stuff as well. But now if you look at where we are at the moment with the virus, like no one's got job security. So having your own business, yeah, it's a risk, but now everyone's in the same boat. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, the playing field's never been more even.
Exactly right.
Unless, of course, you're in the business of making
face masks.
Face masks. Yeah, exactly. So when you go back to the early days of Shedlock, what are some of the things, or what was one thing that you noticed when it kind of went from being just an idea to becoming a business?
So the early days, like we always, or a bit of a background, like as in we always had a training facility, but we always had full-time jobs as well. So working for someone or whatever we're doing. We never really put all of our energy into doing it. It took us to get, or just before we got married.
Yeah.
Just before we got married,
yeah.
so coming up 3 years ago.
She doesn't know how long we've been married for. I'm 30. We got married on my 30th, and I'm only 32. I'm turning 33 this year.
So coming up 3 years, that was like when we said, like, what are we doing? This is what we enjoy. So that's when we put all our energy into opening up Shedlock Training Systems. What
really pushed us? What was that?
What was the driver behind?
Point,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, like what was something that kind of happened, you know, like typically people, they have like a moment where they go, oh, like this feels like a business now. Like, you know, I feel like I'm actually running a business. Is there something that kind of stands out in your mind as like a moment where you went, oh, wow, we've got like clients, they're like paying us, or, you know, we've got our own space? When was a time where you really felt that it went from being like a hobby or a side hustle to being like a business?
I think probably, yeah, as mentioned, like when we opened up Shedlock Training Systems, we're both so unhappy in our jobs that, yeah, when we opened, I guess that was like, oh shit, like we're going to actually make this really work right now, because we've taken a massive hit financially, and yeah, that would probably be the biggest thing.
Yeah, I was always a driver. I was always somebody who sat in the driver's seat. I wasn't somebody to be a passenger. So I knew that it had capabilities. It was just a matter of
getting me on board.
Getting her on board and making sure that all of our lines crossed at the same time. And
I'm still the backseat driver.
yeah, I'm a big driver forward. Like I'm always motivated by more and more. And
What's the most important more to you?
Me, time.
Yeah.
I feel that money is not an asset, that finance is not an asset, that time is the asset. Finance just creates time. So making more money makes more time, in my opinion. And it also, it stops your inability to second guess yourself as well.
And there's a great quote, I can't remember who it was from, but they talk about how you know, poor people will pay people, you know, will you know, buy things, whereas people that are, you know, running a business or trying to really, or sort of think bigger, they'll typically pay people to do things in order to get that time back rather than trying to do it themselves. Is that part of what you're talking about as well?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I didn't come from much. So growing up, where and there was nothing to do with my parents, but I just, you know, we weren't financially stable, and just having somebody, you know, always, it's very, very similar to what you're saying, like somebody who doesn't have much will give you the world, but somebody who has the world will always try and take more. But I didn't want either side of that. I wanted straight down the middle. I didn't want to be worried about looking at a menu and worrying about the price of something. But I also wanted to have the capability to give things back.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I didn't want to have the world and take more of it, but I didn't want to be in the position of where I was growing up and not have enough of something.
Yeah, that's great.
Hmm.
And what excites you the most about your business?
Everything at the moment. This virus has been like the best thing that could have happened. Not as in like what's going on, but like it's actually made us go. We had to basically, in 48 hours put our business online virtually, which we've never, like, you know, we thought eventually maybe we'll go online and do something, but this virus has made us do that in 48 hours. Now we've got like 3-4 other things that we're working on to do with the business to grow it. So I think that's what's exciting us the most, that this has allowed us probably the time to spend on working on so many other avenues that we haven't had before. And yeah, it can only get bigger and better and more exciting for us.
That's awesome. And what are some of the personal or a personal challenge maybe that stands out to you that you faced while you've been working for yourself? You know, typically people talk about, you know, trouble with relationships, either, you know, like with a partner or with friendships, you know, falling apart, or, you know, trying to live on 2 hours sleep a night, or, you know, drinking water and eating toast for meals because they've invested financially everything they've got into their business. What have you guys experienced any of those kind of personal challenges? And if so, is there anything you feel like you know comfortable to share?
Well, we work, live, married together, everything together. We just do everything in life together. So I think initially, like, finding our feet and what our roles were was a big thing for us. So we didn't kind of step on each other's feet. We still do every now and then, but we're pretty good with what we know, what tasks we both have to do. That was probably the biggest challenge, I think, initially.
And is that communication?
Was it communication, or
is it about communication in terms of getting it right?
Yeah. Just, I think it was just identifying roles and, like, you know, so we didn't kind of just cross over onto each other's roles, and yeah, that was the biggest thing. What other challenges do you think?
I guess sort of being, for me, being in the position I was. I work really well with people who are like here against me. So, you know, having been that person myself, and people sort of trying to guide and manage people through their roles. That was probably not something I was comfortable with doing. So essentially being a leader, because I was always a one-stop shop, and I always worked with people who were better than myself as mentors. So being the actual mentor in this case was probably not what I was expecting. And then having the ability to ask for help, there probably wasn't there because I didn't have anybody to ask for help from. That was probably one of my biggest challenges. Yep.
And off the back of that, either, you know, when you were going through that, or even now when you're looking to kind of you know, look after yourself, what's something that each of you do that's kind of, you know, for yourself, it's for your own self-care?
I think probably the last 6 or so months we've both been working heavily on personal development. So we both have adopted our own routines that we do. So for myself, like, I get up early every morning and walk and train, and then I start my day, where Aaron will do the total opposite to me. Yeah, we have our time that we go do our own things throughout the day, which makes us function better, I guess. But yeah, putting ourselves first is probably the main one as well. I think our business is moving more forward now that we're making more time for ourselves, because it all comes down and starts with us. So if we're not functioning right, then the business is not going to either, and all the people around us as well. So I think it is our obligation to put ourselves first, and lead others from that.
Right. And in that respect, you know, you've both spoken a lot about having mentors and you know, almost needing to assume that role for others now to some degree as well. How important is it for you both to be around other business owners?
I find it super important. I guess what that saying is, like, surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded or on the same journey as you. Yeah, like we've had to cut ties with people that aren't serving us this year, and or even last year as well, and just surround ourselves with people that are on or yeah, have the same kind of similar growth mindset and path that we're on is super, super important for both of us.
Yeah, definitely. She probably hit that one on the head. Like I said, I work so much better with people who are well far beyond me, because for me it gives something to chase. If it was a challenge, it gives me something to chase. Because I'm always, if I don't have anything to chase, then I get bored really easy. I work best through chaos and through challenge. So, you know, this time has been so much fun. Like this current situation has been so much fun because it's just thrown an absolute spanner in the works. But I know that I work best on the cusp of breaking. So, yeah, no, it's been good.
That's awesome. I always, anytime somebody, and it might just be a personal thing, I'm sure, anytime somebody mentions the word chaos, I always think of the Joker and how he always said that he's an agent of chaos. Always think about that. But I think it's true that I think if you can look at these times, or any time, anything that's challenging in front of you, anything that looks difficult, and really like dive into it head first and embrace it rather than trying to run from it. You know, I've even going back to my days of like coaching and training people in call centers for, you know, 15 years. One of the things that I would always talk about is that if you're faced with some kind of challenge, you know, that feeling of being uncomfortable, that feeling of, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to go there, that's basically, you know, your body telling you or your mind telling you you're on the verge of something really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, nothing comes from being in your comfort zone.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And if you had to do all of this again, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, if anything?
Do it earlier, which Aaron will probably kill me for saying, but
when I'm right, I'm right. And I'm always right.
No, it's not.
I'm a Leo. I'm always right.
No, probably that would be the main thing, is start it earlier and believing in ourselves that we could do it, and we've had the ability to do it that whole time. But yeah, we're still young. We've come really far as it is, so I know that we're only going to grow bigger and better. And yeah.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that that's a very common answer. Starting earlier, it's just amazing how many people, like everybody. I feel really fortunate that every guest that I have on the podcast is successful in their own right, and yet 9 times out of 10, most of them are humble enough or down to earth enough to recognize, you know, there's still lots of opportunity for them to grow. There's still lots of room to keep having more success. But the fact that they're saying, I wished I'd started earlier, it's just so common. And even I'm the same. I've said, you know, on the podcast in the past that I wish that, you know, like in the first 3 months, so when I left my sort of cushy, easy by comparison to what I do now, at least, corporate job, my safe corporate job, when I left that and started a software business with a friend of mine, that first 3 months, I learned more in those first 3 months than I'd learned in the last 5 years of my corporate job.
Definitely, yeah.
I always talk about how in life we feel like we have like glass ceilings, and we sort of look up and go, no, it's too hard, or it's there's too much at risk, or whatever it is. And we truly amaze ourselves, I think, every day when you kind of force yourself to do those things, that uncomfortable stuff that you guys were talking about before. And every time you do that, you just smash through like another ceiling, and it's like there's this never ending, which can feel a little daunting, but like this never ending set of ceilings, but you just keep smashing your way through the more you learn.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it's really exciting, I think, for that. I get to speak to so many business owners that have that same experience where they love what they do, they just wish they'd started earlier. It's great. And what do you think the best advice that you guys have been given in your working life, or maybe it's just life in general?
Best advice we've been given, or we would give for somebody who wants to start in this industry?
I'll get to that later.
Best advice we've been given.
I think, I don't know if this is advice, but something that stuck with me would be recently, like or not learning, but like no matter if you fail in business, we are in Australia, so like, we're kind of looked after anyway. So like, give it a shot, really. Anything that you want to do is like, give it a shot, because we're very looked after in our country. So I know that's something that's really stuck with me, and I think that's probably pulled down one of my walls of failing, because we have so much we can do.
No, that's awesome. And so thinking back to the beginning, if we talk a little bit about advertising and marketing type stuff for a minute, how did you get your very first client? So you're obviously still working full-time jobs at this point. How did you manage to score your first clients?
Well, we both started in like 24-hour gyms, so we had a bit of a following not a following, but like we created a bit of a client base and name for ourselves in the gyms that we worked in. So I guess those clients came with us initially when we opened, so we're kind of lucky there. Also being in that 24-hour gym as well, like people knew who we were and what we did. So when we did open, they kind of came over as well, which was good. So word of mouth has just been huge for us. Like ridiculously worked well. We've been pretty lucky in that way.
And we've got 1, 2, 3. I think we've had, even when we were working full time and had this as a hobby, I think we've got 4 clients that have been with us for like the past 6 years that have just followed us wherever we've gone. 4? Maybe even more. Yeah, maybe even more. But off the top of my head, there's a definite 2 who have been with us from the very, very start. And yeah, they're sort of, well, one of them especially is sort of like our poster girl. So her results speaks quite highly of our work, from where she's come from to where she is now.
Fantastic. And what do you think that you do that makes your clients feel so special?
Number one is we know every single person in the gym, and basically kind of not exactly what's going on in their life, but something about them or how they are, and that no one is, I know like a lot of probably gyms say this, but no one is a number to us. Like, we go out of our way to know everyone. Our community.
Yeah, our community is good. Our community is very good.
Our coaches.
Yeah, I think geographically where we're located, we are well, obviously, like, we were voted top 10 in all the Vic, so with no one else down around southeast in that poll, as one of the most knowledgeable and like coaches and trainers in this area. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to us actually giving a shit about our clients, and not so much, yes, their result, like what type of results they want, but who they are as well, what really makes them tick, and understanding who they are and their values and their beliefs, and what's really going to activate them to move closer towards their goals.
And when you think back to, maybe the early days of doing your own, advertising and marketing, what was something that you did and you thought, this is going to be great, this is going to go so well, and it just bombed? It was just horrible.
Back in the day. Like when we opened up our physical space for Shedlock, or just in general?
Just in general, maybe typically this is, I've heard everything from, I dropped 20,000 pamphlets in letterboxes and I didn't get one phone call, to, all kinds of different things. Just, those things that people were just so sure it would go well, and for some reason it just didn't.
Well, Facebook does remind me of the memories when we first opened our first gym, of some of our bloody creative posters that we made. I'm like, oh my God, what were we freaking thinking? I don't think I knew about Canva then.
Canva's helped a lot of businesses.
We've done like the whole letterbox drop. We've done, that hasn't really worked for us.
What about the opposite? What about something that you did and you thought, well, look, we'll give this a go. Maybe you didn't have very high hopes and it took off, but went really well.
12 Days of Christmas campaign. We thought that was going to be a crock of shit. We ended up.
Yeah, we did really well for 2 years running.
Yeah, I think in the first year we ended up making around 20K on it or something like that. So it was for very minimal.
It was no cost to us.
I don't think we paid anything.
It was just thinking of 12 days of like Christmas campaigns, and that blew us out of the water. Even
some of the packages we chucked a huge margin on and put a ridiculous price on, we're even selling. So that was quite a surprise.
Do you think some of that comes down to what you were both talking about early on around, like your people, the people that come to the space to see you and to work with you, they become believers. They're not casual observers. They're not like perhaps a lot of the people that you might have seen in 24-hour gyms where, we know that, a lot of people that sign up for those kind of gyms typically only turn up 30 or 40% of the time. So these people that you're working with now, obviously a lot more dedicated and obviously believe in what you're doing and what your knowledge and that kind of thing is that you share with them.
Yeah, I do think it comes down to that. Like, we look at the gym like a family because we see them a lot more than we see our families, these people, or when we can see them. So yeah, I guess, if your family is telling you something, you believe what they say. So I guess it kind of is similar. We've created a connection with them, and yeah.
That's a good way to look at it as well, like especially talking about it like a family. And I suppose that's you know, in most families at least, that's part of it, is where, you know, you trust each other and you learn from each other, and so that makes a lot of sense. And what do you think is the most valuable free tool that you've used to either promote or create for the business?
Probably Canva. MailChimp.
Yep.
I don't know how long it is before it's not free, but that's been really good. And yeah, Facebook and Instagram. They are amazing.
Clients,
Yeah.
using clients' knowledge, using their knowledge and their resources to find clients, trainers, whatever. Yeah,
that's great.
Mm.
And so these last couple of questions, look, they're a little bit different to you know, the others that we've spoken about today. And the first one actually comes from our previous guest. So it's Veronica Lisa Marto, who's a celebrant, and she posed the question: who is someone in your industry, no naming names, that you don't like, and why? So maybe we'll focus on the why rather than who they are.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's of people. It's just our industry is so saturated by shit that.
Yeah, I don't think there's people I don't like. Like everybody, there's a place for everybody in this industry. I think their values and their beliefs just don't line up with ours. With some of the crap that they talk about. Like, I guess what I dislike the most is the what do you call them? Yeah, those people.
The influencers on
just. Obviously, I'm really good with social media and all that stuff. So, yeah, just people chasing fame off the back end of something. So, and assuming that their ways work because they're genetically gifted. But hey, if they use a booty band or something like that, it's going to help you get this body as well, even though I'm genetically gifted and I was born this way and I don't need to do anything to get the body I want.
And even worse, like at the moment, the virus has bought out every man and their dog. I don't even think they're trainers, but they are giving the home workouts and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, as Aaron said, I don't think it's we dislike them. It's just a very frustrating industry when people are trying to just sell themselves as.
Or somebody who professes they can do as much as I can do and know as much as I know with half the experience and half the education background as myself. That's probably another one I highly dislike.
The example that I have at the top of my mind right now is, no doubt you've seen the video circulating just in the last week of Donald Trump talking about injecting yourself with disinfectant to cure yourself from coronavirus.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like the same thing that you guys might be talking about in your industry. Like, you can just do these 3 things and you don't have to work out.
But he's so powerful in his way that people will probably think about doing it.
Yeah.
That's the shit thing about it.
He's just trying to thin the herd.
Yeah.
And what's the next big thing for you guys? So you've obviously just been through like a huge pivot in moving online. What's the next big thing?
We won't tell you everything because there's a few secrets.
Ooh.
But so Strong by Shedlock is going to be our online platform, which should be releasing soon. We're trying to brand ourselves a little bit. as Mr. and Mrs. Shedlock. So that will cover all of our different businesses that we're kind of working on. Aaron's been heavily working on the Academy, which is our educational platform. So I guess that's another kind of, side, well, not a side business, another business under our banner. And also a protein label. We're just about to kind of getting ready to launch that at the moment.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we've got a few things going on, exciting things that I know that, will do well.
And this can either be a collective answer or individual, but what's the best advice that you can give the Paperclip podcast family?
It starts with you. That would be my best advice. Everything comes from you.
She stole mine. That was mine.
No, it wasn't. No, it's so incredibly true. And the more development that we're doing for ourselves and growth is like, the more I realize is like, why the hell didn't I do that earlier? It's just benefiting both in our personal development, but in our business development as well.
What's mine? Stop waiting for life to go back to normal. This is the norm. So sort your shit out now, because when life goes back to normal, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier.
That's good advice, both of them. And I think the last question that I'll ask you is, what question would you like me to ask the next guest on this show?
What are you afraid of?
Ooh.
What is your biggest fear and limiting beliefs? What's holding you back from succeeding or potentially being better? What's holding you back right now?
I love it. And I'm looking forward to the answer, whoever it is that's on the next show. So if our audience, or if anyone would like to get in touch with you guys, Sam or Aaron, head to shedlocktrainingsystems.com.au. And I always like to close the show with a quote. Typically, I try to pull something from your world, your industry. And so today's one is, to keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our minds strong and clear.
Good.
Does it get the approval?
Yeah, it gets the approval.
Gets the approval.
Good job.
Sam and Aaron, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For everyone else, you've been listening or watching the Paperclip podcast presented by BSDA. We have one clear goal: help you to become bigger. If you'd like to learn more about growing your business, head to bsda.com.au. Until next time, keep growing.